Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I have a really quick video for you guys. Today's video is going to be breaking down the build I used for the Pyromancer, Pyromania, Dark Souls Remastered live streams I was doing during the week. By the time this video is uploaded, it will be a Saturday, so we would finish the playthrough yesterday on the Friday. Now, if you haven't seen any of that, I would highly recommend clicking the card on screen right now to take you to the playlist, and you can watch through all the live stream and all its funny fails, all the deaths. And I basically killed every boss besides Gwendolyn. Simple down to the fact, one, it's the most annoying boss fight ever, and two, it doesn't really benefit me in terms of my build. But I kind of took you through the game, so if you guys want to go check that out, I highly recommend go doing that. And really quickly, if you enjoyed this video, please do consider hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, the little notification bell. Really helps me out. But without further ado, let's get into the build. Let's talk about it. Some of the pros, some of the cons. So realistically, for this build, I want to do a Pyromancer build that, one, was fun because I don't usually always use Pyromancers. But two, gave me a little bit more of a kind of a hybrid between mobility and strength weapons, if that makes sense. So I want to kind of have a little bit of variety in the weapon arsenal and how to kind of tackle some of the situations that were kind of put in front of me in the game. So let's get into it, let's break it down, let's talk about it. So I finished the game at soul level 100. I'm going to say don't look at the 101. The 101 is only 101 because I had one extra point available and I threw it into attunement and it doesn't do anything at 20. So I'm going to say I capped at soul level 100. So let's break it down. Let's talk about it a little bit. So vitality, I got to 35. 35 vitality is way more than enough. You could actually get away using 30 vitality. I used 30 vitality for the majority of the playthrough. It wasn't up until we got to Gwen that I put it to 35 because I had a load of extra souls. But at 35 we get 12-16 health. If you have the Ring of Favour protection on, you get it a little bit higher in stamina in the equip load as well. But I didn't really go down that route. I didn't see the point. For attunement, I capped it at 19. The 20 doesn't count, don't look at it as 20, just look at it as 19. I capped it at 19 for the 5 attunement slots. Now, 5 works great for me, but if you want to try this build out and you feel like you need that extra attunement slot to get it to 6, just get your attunement up to 23. And it does make sense in the fact that if you want to use 2 Chaos Pyromancers, they take up 2 slots each. So you can still have a little bit of wiggle room depending on how you want it, but I think 19 is ample enough, and I'll talk about some of the Pyromancers that I was using. So for endurance, I stopped at 30. Now the reason I stopped at 30 is because I'm using Havel's Ring. Havel's Ring gives me 105 in the equip load, and then having 30 endurance also gives me 133 in stamina. Now if you don't want to use Havel's Ring and you want to use the armor set I'm using, which is the Ornstein set, you're going to need to get this endurance to 40, because without Havel's Ring we actually only have 70 equip load, and we're fat rolling with 46 equip load used, so just keep that in mind. Now, I wouldn't recommend going any higher than 40, and the reason I say that is because at 40, it's basically the soft cap for stamina anyway. Stamina doesn't get upgraded after 40, and everything after 40 on endurance is just equip load and bleed resistance, and I don't really think that trade is worth the extra points when you could just use Havel's Ring or keep it at 40, so just keep that in mind in case you want to try that out. It's just something that I should feel like I need to point out. For strength, I kept it at 24, and the reason I kept it at 24 is because that gave me access to all the weapons I actually wanted to use for this build, as well as the shields that I wanted. So 24 gave me access to the Zweihander, the Claymore, the Black Knight Straight Sword, the Black Knight Shield, the Grass Crest Shield, and Quail's Fury Sword. It worked out fantastic for what I needed. For dexterity, I got dex to 45, and I've kept it at 45 simply down to the fact that, one, it scales the damage on the Fury Sword, which is very minimalistic. In all seriousness, the main reason I kept it at 45 though is because from 35 to 45 you actually get a buff to your casting speed, which is really beneficial to anybody who's playing sorcerers, clerics, or pyromancers in our case, where the pyromancer, so it really makes a big difference for us. So anything under 35 won't really do anything, it's just not worth it, but I thought 45 is a nice cap, so that is the reason it's there. Resistance, intelligence, and faith, didn't actually put anything into that because there was no need, especially resistance. There's never need to put anything in resistance when items can actually be more beneficial in the long run. But with all that being said, we have then our weapon damage of 443, 510, 95, 138. Physical defense is 306. Our base defense is actually 135, as you can see. And then for magical defense, we have 213, 244 for flame defense, 236 for lightning defense, and our base stats for them are 129, 132, and 140. So with everything I've picked, we have a very nice, overall, decent stat, which can really be used for any situation in the game, for the most part. So, and then for poise, we have 45, so poise is obviously staggering, getting stone locked, that kind of stuff in boss fights. Bleed resistance 190, poison resistance 86, chaos resistance 164. So overall, pretty nice stats, I think. and they're pretty usable. It worked fine for me. Moving on to the weapon portion of this video, we're starting off with the Claymore. So, Claymore only requires 16 strength and 10 dex. You can get this weapon really early on the bridge to the Sunlight Altar. We have 257 plus 213 in terms of damage. Now, when you two-hand this, you're obviously always going to get a 50% bonus damage output added on top of that for any weapon that you're two-handing. That is strength, weapon-wise. Now, I'm going to discuss a little bit about switching the Claymore with the Zweihander in certain situations in a second, but moving on, we have the Black Knight Sword, a +5. Now, you can actually get this sword pretty early on in the game, and it only requires 20 strength and 18 dex, which is pretty low when you think about it. And something I should point out, actually, is there's 3 classes you could have picked for this build. I picked the Pyromancer for the attunement slots. If you want to start getting some of these weapons even quicker and use them straight away, the Warrior class is a good option because he has relatively high strength. And you can get the Claymore by only spending 3 soul skill points in strength, and you've got it automatically. Now, the only downside with the Warrior is you don't have any attunement slots, and you've obviously got to spend more points on attunement. Now, if you pick the Knight works out really well for Vitality. And you do get 1 attunement slot super early on, which is great too. And again, strength isn't that bad on the Knight. But ultimately, I think the Pyromancer is still a better choice because you get 2 attunement slots. You get the Pyromancy Flame. You get Pyromancy to start off with anyway. And you have kind of a nice even balance of stats. So in the order I would go with them classes is Pyromancer, Knight, Warrior. It just really depends on your playstyle and what you want. But again, Black Knight Sword, super effective. And what's really good about this sword is not only do you get the 330 plus the 113, you can also get 50% extra add on top when you're two-handing, but not only that, you can actually get 20% bonus damage to Chaos Demon enemies. So that includes Quailag, Ceaseless Discharge, and the Stray Demon, Fire Sage Demon, and Asylum Demon. So overall, this weapon's a really good weapon choice. And to be honest, if you get this really early on from the Knight, regards to Blue Tear Stone Ring, you can basically go through the whole game using this, which is great. Now, Black Knights only have a 20% chance of dropping this. If you don't get it from the Blue Tear Stone Knight, you can actually get it when you return back to the Asylum to get the Rusted Iron Ring. And if you don't get it there, then you're going to have to wait till the Kiln of the First Flame to get it. At the end of my playthrough, I actually got it first try from the Kiln of the First Flame, which is great. I got it maxed out to +5 already. And this does require Twinkling Titanite to upgrade, so I just want to point that out. But moving on, we have the Fire Zweihander +10. Now, you could actually put this as a Chaos Zweihander. But what I found is the +10 fire actually still does more damage overall. So that's the reason I went for that. Now this weapon only requires 24 strength and 10 dex, and that is why my strength is capped at 24. Because this was the only other weapon that I really needed to use, so as long as it stuck at 24, I was fine. Now something I quickly want to point out is this is an Ultra Greatsword. You can get this very early on from the Firelink Cemetery, which is great. But when I said about the Claymore and the Zweihander, you could switch them in and out. What I mean is, if you want to have loads of damage at +15, will be a little bit slower, the Zweihander is definitely a great choice. If you want to put the Fire Infusion on the Claymore, because the Claymore gives you some extra attacks, because it doesn't require as much stamina, then that is a great option too. It really just depends on your playstyle and how you're finding the situations are going for you. Personally, I preferred having the Claymore +15 and the Zweihander +10, so that's just something to keep in mind. Depending on how you want it, or if you're struggling, you know, having the really slow attack speed, then I would definitely recommend putting the Fire Infusion onto the Claymore. But moving on. Oh, also, this doesn't scale when it's Fire Infused. No weapon scales when it has an infusion on it. It just stays base. Starts a bit like the Drake Sword does. But moving on. Quailag's Fury Sword. Again, fantastic dex weapon, and you can actually get this very, very early on. And something I regret not doing on my playthrough was picking this up earlier than I did. It wasn't until I got into Past Honesty and Smough I remembered this sword, and I was like, oh my god, I need it. And I should have got it earlier on. Simply down to the fact of how quick it is. But when you get this to +5, you have 90 physical plus the 112, and then the fire damage is 255 plus 53. Now, with dex being scaled at 45, you do get obviously a little bit of scaling in terms of physical damage, but really what makes this weapon great is the humanity scaling. So in order for the humanity scaling to work on this weapon, you need 10 soft active humanity. Any more than 10, it won't actually scale. Doesn't scale any further than what the 10 will give you. And what the 10 humanity actually scales with is it gives you 25 extra physical damage, 56 extra fire damage, which is a huge improvement. So just keep that in mind. Now this weapon was primarily used later on in the game for Nido, because Nido is very susceptible to fire, and a lot of the enemies in the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, because a lot of them have a very weak tolerance to fire, so you can just kind of snowball through that. Now, if you would have remembered earlier on in the game, if I had remembered earlier on in the game, this is a great weapon for Sif as well. So even if you haven't done Sif, and you're coming back to him, say after Anolondo, this weapon will be great against Sif because he is very weak to fire, so that's just something to keep in mind. But I love this weapon. This kind of became like the go-to dex weapon out the gate, and the simple fact it only requires 11 strength and 13 dex is mind-boggling, and the weight is only 3.5 with a durability of 600. So overall, great weapon, fantastic choice. Moving on down to the next one is the Pyromancer Flame at +5, which I would count as +20 because this is the Quailana +5 upgrade. So as you can see, we have magic adjust at 230, fire damage is 60, +78, and something I quickly want to point out is, yes, it has A scaling and intelligence, but that's always going to be the case once it's fully upgraded. But something I quickly want to point out is if you use Dusk's Crown, you get an extra 20% on top of the magic adjust. And if you combine that with the power within Pyromancy, you're pretty much tanking. You're pretty beefy in terms of damage. And against Artorias, literally we had that boss fight down for the first try, and I messed up on the timing of my heal and died. Second time I messed up on the cast, but again, it just destroyed Artorias really quick, and the third time we nailed it, so it's just to keep in mind. And this is super effective against Sif, especially in playthrough 2. And Nido, it'll do a load more damage to again, so that's just something to keep in mind. And then when it comes to shields, we have the Grasscrest shield, which really is great because it's 95 physical protection, 42% magic, 70% fire, which is great for super early on in the game, 50% lightning, and 51 stability. And it only requires 10 strength, and you can obtain this from the Darkroot Basin. Now, the real reason I was using the shield, and I use the shield on a lot of builds, is simply down to the fact that you get yourself 24% extra stamina recovery, which is super great, especially if you're using greatswords, dex weapons, or any sorcery kind of stuff. It just helps to kind of give you that little bit of extra speed and stamina, especially in between hits or in between blocks, so that's just something to keep in mind. And it's great for the fire resistance, especially the physical resistance as well. It's just overall a great shield. I can't really complain about it. I use this in the Ornstein Smoke fight and it worked just fine. So moving on to the final shield of the build. It is the Black Knight shield, and again you can get this from any Black Knight in Lordran. Again, it only has 20% chance to drop, but if you can get this super early on, because it only requires 16 strength, you are set. And I mean, you are really set for a lot of the situations. So what makes this shield so great? Well, when you get to +5, it has stability that is on par with the great shields in the game, which is great. As you can see, we already have 71 stability, but when it's upgraded, it's even more beefy. And with it being a medium shield as well, it is actually the third highest stability shield in the medium shield category. So even that at +5 is insane to think about, and it only weighs 6, by the way, which is great too. But what makes the shield even better, I'm not even done yet guys, we're not even done with how cool the shield is. It has the best fire resistance in the whole game of 95. So Quailag, Gwen, Ceaseless Discharge, Lava Centipede, Fire Sage Demon, Gargoyles. Fire ain't gonna do shit to you. You are set, especially if you can get this super early on in the game. Physical resistance is 100, which is even better. Lightning is 65, which is great, especially in the Ornstein Smoke fight. Magic resistance is 25, but that doesn't matter. I mean, for what the shield gives you overall, it's way better than any other shield in the game. So just keep that in mind. I think this is an ultimately great shield. I think it's the best shield to use. And with both of these shields, you can actually kind of gauge a couple different situations depending on what it is in certain boss fights or in certain, you know, things that might come up where you need to sprint. Obviously, you can switch to the Grasscrest shield. Magic boss fights like the Boomlight Butterfly, this will cover you, not an issue. Then say if you're against Quailag, this will cover you straight away early game because it's 70%. Lava Centipede, Fire Sage, it'll still cover you in all them fights. Gargoyles, it'll work great as well. But it's just something to keep in mind, both these shields are as good as each other. It's just kind of picking the right situation. So that's it for the kind of the weapons and the shields. Moving on to the armor set, I chose the Ornstein armor set simply down to the fact that it's a fantastic weapon. Base stat wise, it's just, I don't even have words to describe how good it is. It holds its own. Now, what I like about this is the fire resistance is 112 straight away off the bat with this. You get really solid lightning resistance of 18 on the helmet, 40 on the breastplate, 14 on the arms, and then you get 24 on the lightning defense. It's amazing. Magic defense is great on it too. This whole, even just the fact that the physical defense, everything's great about it. As you can see, our base physical defense is meant to be 135. With all this armor on, we're at 306. So it's just, overall, it works out fantastic. It gives you 45 poise as well, which is great for Pyromancers. And to get that even higher, we're going to put the wolf ring on, which would give us 85. So overall, this armor set I think is the best. Now, the only downside to this armor, well, there's two downsides, is one, if you don't have Havel's ring, you're going to need to get endurance to 40 because you will flat roll. And the other issue with it is that with Ornstein's armor, you lose stamina regen, 1 point of stamina regen for every second. Now, if you have the whole armor on, it's for 3 seconds. But with the Grass Crest Shield and the Carthy ring, you can kind of counterbalance that. It's nothing major that you would notice, so don't worry. It's not that big of a deal overall, so just keep that in mind. But that's just something I want to quickly point out. But I think it's a great set of armor. As you can see, it looks really cool, especially with Quaeleg's Fury Sword and the Black Knight Shield. It just looks amazing. Now, you could use the Pyromancer's normal armor if you really want to for the fire resistance and poison resistance. You can use the Quaelana set, the gold hem set for fire resistance if you want. It's not very good in physical defense, but you can if you want to use that. I just think Ornstein's armor overall is a really solid choice. And I mean, for the weight requirement, you get a decent amount of defense out of it. So I think it's just something that's to keep noted. But moving on from the armor, we have the rings. And there was only 3 rings that I actually used for this playthrough primarily. That is being the Carthy ring, which gives you, I believe, 48% extra stamina bonus, regeneration bonus, which can stack with the Grass Crest Shield. So you nearly have about 70%, if I remember correctly. Which again, counteracts the whole Ornstein stamina reduction. But at the same time, just having the Carthy ring on counteracts that anyway. Next ring was Havel's ring. I used that for a majority of the playthrough. Again, if you don't want to use the Havel's ring, you'll have 70 equip load unless you get endurance to 40. But I just like to keep the Havel's ring on. I don't think it's a bad trade, really. I don't think it's a bad deal, really, for having not to spend extra points in endurance. And then we were using the Wolf Ring for a lot of the early parts of the game for the poise boost. You can use that anyway, even in late game. I think it works just great. And I'll give you 85 poise, so you have a little bit more reduction to stagger and get stone locked, so just keep that in mind. But I think for rings, that was it. Rusted Iron Ring for certain areas like of Blight Time, but you don't really count that. But overall, it works great. I mean, you could use Ring of Steel Protection as well if you really wanted to. If you want even more fire defense, you could put this on, especially when you get into Lost Izalith. Really up to you how you want to do it. And then, like, Cursebite Ring was used for Seath, but that was really about it. Didn't use the Dusk Crown Ring, because I didn't see the point. And that was something I forgot to mention. In terms of helmets, I only switched out to the Crown of Dusk. It doesn't give it really any sort of defense, but for the weight of 0.4, my bad. You get that 20% extra bonus damage to magic adjustment, so it really makes it worthwhile. And then, in terms of pyromancies I was running, I really just kind of stayed with the whole Great Fireball, Great Chaos Fireball, the Fire Whip, Poison Mist, Power Within, and the Black Flame is going to be used in playthrough 2 a lot more, and this can break stamina defense on a lot of the enemies in the game, and it's just so worth it. So I'll show you some of the pyromancies, what they look like. So Fire Whip is basically, as it says, Fire Whip. This was really effective for kind of getting grouped up enemies, kind of cleared out really quick. Fire Surge, I use that quite a bit for kind of flamethrower effect, for kind of hitting enemies running at me. Poison Mist obviously makes sense, it's like Poison Arrows, but just the Pyromancer's version. Fireball I just put on because I didn't know what else to put in. It's just a basic one. Great Fireball I use for Artorias, especially. This thing clears out quite a lot of enemies with decent damage. And then the Chaos Fireball was another one I used. Now Black Flame, I will show you that as well. So we take this off and put on Black Flame. This thing is tanky for getting rid of shielded enemies. You run up to them now. A bit like Combustion, but better. So just keep that in mind. But with that all being said, guys, that is it for the build. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you tweak the build or you made any changes to it that are actually better, please let me know in the comment section below. I'd be super interested to read about it and try it out myself. I hope you guys enjoyed the playthrough if you're watching this after watching all the live stream. Again, if you haven't seen it, there'll be a card on screen at the beginning of the video, obviously, and there'll be a card at the end of the screen now coming up somewhere. But that all being said, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do hit that like button. Do consider sticking around and hitting that subscribe button, the notification bell, to be updated of when I upload new content. I upload daily, every day of the week at 12 PM Greenwich Mean Time, UK Standard Time, and I stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday and Sunday every week, and there's a wide variety of stuff. At the time of making this video, we are covering the Master Chief Collection line playthrough, and I started, as of yesterday, Dark Souls 2 Skull of the First Sin as our weekly live stream, and I'm doing a Dark Hex build on that, so if you guys want to check that out, then go stick around and have a watch. The first part of that live stream will be actually up now to watch, so I'd highly recommend going and checking that out. That all being said, if you also want to see me play through 2 using this build now, taking on New Game Plus, let me know. I would be happy to sit there and record it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for sticking around, and I hope you guys have a great day.